Sure. I'm Trent Jansen. I'm a furniture and object designer and also an academic at UNSW Art Design. I work with a process in my studio that we call design anthropology, which, if I had to summarize it, it's using material culture theory to really purposefully design things that physically embody our culture. So designing objects and furniture and all sorts of useful things that are the physical embodiment of specific cultural groups. I think that's a pretty good summary of what I do.
Anthropology.
Design anthropology, yeah.
Yeah, like how do you pick stories or culture that you want to focus on into designing an artifact behind the stories? Like when you pick stories, how do you decide that?
Well, there's lots of different ways. Sometimes I'm given a brief that asks me to address like a particular. Um, Sometimes I'm asked to address a particular culture. Sometimes I'm asked to work with a specific individual, and we develop ideas around our shared or kind of disparate cultures. But I guess I'm just sort of fundamentally interested in culture, like the way, the values that govern who we are and the way that we behave and the choices that we make, the ideas that we have. And I guess I've always been, well, pre-pandemic, really fascinated and interested in travel. So I do, like I move around a lot, or I have historically, and I'm always wanting to learn more about the culture that I'm working amongst. So often it's that research or that thirst for knowledge that drives my projects. Most recently, like for the past, I don't know, it's got to be getting close to 10 years or so, a lot of my work's been focused on Indigenous Australian culture. And I guess I started that work when I was living in Alice Springs, or maybe just prior to that, actually. Actually, I started that work when I was working on a collection for broached commissions, and I was given this brief where they asked me to tell a story or to convey a narrative about the colonial period in Australia's history. And I just knew from having studied Aboriginal studies in high school and just from my general knowledge of Australian history that a huge part of that period of Australia's history was the impact that colonisation had then and continues to have today on those cultures. So it was something that I really wanted to focus on for that project. And then through research, I came upon a particular narrative that I thought embodied some of those elements of impact quite well. So I focused on that particular story. And then since that project, I guess I became aware that there's, I was always aware, but I guess it became more apparent just how marginalised so many Indigenous Australian communities are. And I wanted to make a focus of my work the kind of designing of artefacts that pay respect to Indigenous Australian communities or conveyed particular stories, or work with artists or designers or craftspeople from very marginal communities, and sometimes not, in order to bring those stories into the mainstream through the work that I make, or to try to. So I've been working on those projects now, I guess for the last 10 years, and then, they started off as these kind of small projects for very niche, galleries and design houses. And then the most recent one was a collaboration with Marie Clark for a pair of public furniture pieces in a big public space in Melbourne in the CBD.
I saw that in your website.
Yeah, so it's hopefully becoming more and more kind of open and exposed to the main. Yeah, I don't think I really knew what I wanted to do. Like, I knew I wanted to be a furniture and object designer. I knew that I had a real passion for, small and medium scale, three-dimensional things. And I felt like I had, that was the area that I had the most kind of natural ability in. I'm not a great graphic designer. I'm I would never be a great architect. You know, the different scales and different ways of visualizing and thinking, but I think small to medium scale objects, my mind just seems to think well in that scale. And then, you know, I guess I just developed lots and lots of projects from when I graduated that were just pursuing different ideas, different areas of interest. And then you know, I was always trained as a designer that in this conceptual way where I was always taught that the work that I'm making should be about something important. You know, that it should be either conveying a story or creating some change that is important socially or personally, economically, I don't know, in all sorts of ways, but that there should be a justification for the work that you're doing. So I was always looking for, you know, these kind of complex ideas to convey in the work that I was doing that I felt were sort of socially valuable. And, you know, I guess I started to combine my politics with my work, you know, because, you know, I'm really into sustainability. I'm a bit of a climate change activist in a small scale in my local community, but I'm also, you know, spending some time in different Indigenous communities with different Indigenous people and beginning to understand more about the marginalisation of those individuals and communities. And, you know, as I bring all of these interests and not just interests, but passions and political motivations together, this is the work that kind of comes out of the convergence of all those ideas.
So it starts with you like actually creating a small design studio yourself, right? Or with a partner?
No, I don't have a partner. I guess, like, in some ways, yeah, but in the beginning, though, and for a lot of the time, even now, that's just me, you know, like, in the beginning, me in my bedroom, and now it's me in a studio, and I have, you know, an intern come and work with me a couple of days a week, and I have 3D modelers who come and work in here whenever I need them, and I outsource lots of work to lots of people in other places. So yeah, it's a very small studio, whereas, you know, most days it's just me here. Just because this kind of work is not massively financially lucrative, you know, like, it's difficult to make a living doing this sort of work because it's very niche. It's shown in galleries. It's not something that you can sell hundreds and thousands of units doing. Yeah. Not that that's something that I want to do, you know, it's kind of purposeful in many ways. So yeah, I mean, I guess I did sort of start a studio in that I, you know, gave what I do a name, and, you know, we had presence on the internet, and we started to get kind of acknowledgements in media and through different avenues. But I mean, really, all it is me just making one project after another on subjects that I'm really interested in and passionate about. And
that's pretty crazy, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I guess there was. I've always had to have other jobs, you know, like I still don't make a living from my work. It's you know, like I basically function as an artist. You know, it's like there are very, very few artists in Australia who make a living from their work, and I'm one of those. So it's part of the reason why I teach. So I'm on faculty at UNSW in the School of Art and Design. But I also love teaching, and teaching is and research are really good accompaniments to the work that I do. So, you know, they kind of feed into each other. So, yeah, I mean, I guess teaching has always been what pays the bills. And the work I make...
It's just your passion, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, it's becoming more and more of a component of my income, and, you know, it definitely covers itself financially now. Like, I don't have to be spending my own money to make work. Generally, I can spend the money that I make from selling work on making new work. And, you know, I hope that over time I can eventually be able to earn a full income from selling work.
Yeah.
But that's tricky, you know, because, you know, if we make a chair, that chair will sell for, because it's so, we'll only make a few of them. They're often very difficult and complex to make, and they're often quite innovative in the process that we use to produce them, that they end up being expensive. So a chair we make might be $12,000, and you can only sell so many $12,000 chairs in a year because it's just not the audience for that.
For the huge market. It's for the niche one. Like at first when I went on the science stool that you guys have, I was like, because I didn't read the stories and stuff behind it yet, right? But then I was like, wow, a $670 chair, a stool, like that's pretty crazy at pricing. But
but even that's cheap. Like that's the cheapest chair that I've ever made. Like the most recent stool that I did is like $7,000. So like it's and it's not like we're charging that just because we can. It's like that's what it makes, what it costs to make, plus our margin, plus the gallery's margin. That's it. No one's making any kind of crazy markups or anything like that. The nature of making unique and innovative work, it's just expensive.
So how do you actually find those target audience that actually comes to buy your products? Like, do they come from exhibitions, or do they come from internet, or how do they contact you guys and actually?
I don't know. If you can find them, let me know.
All right.
No. I have a gallery. I work with 3 galleries. So I work with one in Australia, Gallery Sally Dan Cuthbert, and she sells our work through her client base here in Australia. I have a gallery in China and America. They're called Gallery All, and they represent us both in North America and in China. And then I work not that often, but every now and then with a gallery in Italy called Galleria Rosanna Orlandi, and she just takes on some things every now and then. It's a little bit tricky in Italy because the transport costs to get work to Italy mean it adds so much more expense by the time it gets there. It's a little bit complicated. But
all right, and okay, I think we kind of run out of time now because this podcast is like 10 to 15 minutes. But other than that, because for us, right, university students, what do you actually recommend us to improve, or in terms of skill set, or what should we have before we actually go into the real workplace?
I mean, it depends so much on what you want to do. The real advice that I give to students usually is just to follow your passion and your interests and your beliefs. Your philosophies. I think a lot of people go into design because they see it as like art with a paycheck. Like I'm good at art, but you can't make a living from art, so I'll do design, and that way I can get a job and get paid. It can be like that if you want to work for someone, and if you're happy and fulfilled working for someone doing work that is someone else's. But I was never interested in doing that. It was always something that I always felt like I needed to fulfill my own creative vision and make my own work. So for me, it's never been art with a paycheck. It's just art, art without a paycheck, which is fine because I love it and I'm really passionate about it and I'm doing what I believe in. And for me, that's most important. I can't think of anything worse than having to go to a job every day that I hate and to turn this thing that I love into something that I really don't want to do. And I think that if you work at it and you're sort of savvy enough and you work the angles enough, you always find a way to pay the bills doing what you love. It's really hard at first, especially. It takes a lot of time, a lot of motivation, and a lot of drive to do it. But I don't think you'll never regret it, and you'll always love what you do. And for me, that's the most important thing.
But like in terms of a skill set, right? What do you think? For example, on your day-to-day basis, what skills do you use the most? Is it CADing?
Man, it changes for every project. It just depends on what we're doing. Like I use 3D modelers a lot, but I don't 3D model myself. I'm kind of too old for that. I was trained at a time when that was just beginning to come out, and the software that we were learning was really early and not great. So and it's not something I've ever learned because I've always just worked with people that do it for me, and I'm happy with that process. But it's definitely useful. But it's just a tool like any other tool. It's not design. It's just a tool for visualizing design or creating files that can produce design. It's not. It in itself is not design. The design is the research that you do, the way that you apply that research into tangible outcomes, and the poetry and the complexity and the beauty and the embodiment of your culture and the culture of others that you bring to the things that you think of, that you create. That's the design bit, and most of that happens in here. Most of it happens by reading and observing and thinking and some sketching, getting your ideas down, or writing. I do a lot of writing to get my ideas down, but most of it happens here. So it's about training your mind to translate interesting and complex and relevant information through some poetic process, processing it through your particular way of thinking and your way of reflecting on that information, and then communicating that through some output that enables you to transfer that information to an audience. And I think that becomes, you only get good at that through practice.
All right.
Yeah.
I think the recording is stopped here, but other than that, I still want to ask more questions. Do you still have time for me?
Yeah, I've got like 5 minutes. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, so like, why do you use so much lettering in your work? Because I saw a lot of your work is like a lot of lettering, right?
Yeah, that's just the most recent work. That started because of a collaborator that I was working with, Johnny Naguda, who I've worked with on not my most recent project, but the couple before that. And he is a saddler, so he used to be a saddler, so he used to make saddles for horses on a remote cattle station in the Kimberley region of West Australia. So when we collaborated, we worked with leather because that's a material that he's really familiar with. He's kind of an expert with leather, and we experimented a lot with leather together, and he taught me certain things about working with leather. So I guess I've just developed a bit of a love for leather.
Okay.
It's a beautiful natural material. It wears beautifully. It has these beautiful inherent material qualities that make it do certain things, like thick. So it kind of puckers and folds in a beautiful way. But you can get different types of leather. Some of it will form and go hard, and give you these kind of rigid surfaces. Some of it is very soft and supple, so it will kind of fold and squash and stretch. So it's a really diverse and flexible kind of material that you can use for lots of different things.
I think the material like speaks for itself. Like in your work, I could see that because the leather actually cover or go around the shapes of maybe a chair or just the hard material that is under the leather. So it speaks as a language, I think, like for the shape that you're trying to present. But yeah. It's so cool. I love your work, honestly. Yeah.
And it's also like you don't have to do anything to it. You don't cover it. You don't finish it. It's just as it is. It's beautiful. There's nothing. You don't have to lacquer it. You don't have to sand it. You don't have to finish it. It's beautiful.
All right. Thank you so much, Trent.
Honestly. Thanks, Trent.
Honestly.
Hey, also, if you what year are you in at the moment?
I'm in my third year. I'm doing honors next year. Yeah. So in RMIT we have 4 years, and it's honors next year.
Cool. If you ever want to do an internship with me in the studio, let me know because I'm always looking for people to come and work here.
All right. Cool. For sure.